There we go. It looks like we're good to go. You just yep. Should be good to go. We don't have any tunes right now. I was in the process unsuccessfully of preparing some type of audio situation. But for now we're just gonna be in the dead silence. So I wanna point something out. I love the blur effect. It's so fantastic. So it's right over here. You see it in the upper. It's cutting my finger off. It hurts. Every time I go into the blur, I'm like entering into the another dimension, apparently. The blur dimension or something. Um, so over there in the upper right corner over here, um, that took uh, a sad amount of time. It was a little bit of work to make that work correctly. Um, that's the tool some of you may be aware of called rain meter, and it's a nifty little tool, and that is the culmination of a handful of different skins and my modifications to them, and there you go. System stats, calendar, weather, and that is Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit. It was negative 15 earlier today, and then it just got well, well. What do you know? It's getting warmer as we speak. I tell you what. All right, so I do want to also share my new hoodie with everybody. It's what I was waiting for. There we go. Just trying to make sure it was flat and easy to read. This was such a serendipitous hoodie to exist in this world by an underground rapper that I have been listening to for many years, more than half a decade. And it just so happens that he decided to make some merch, make a little merch, and be a little bit of a merchant to support his cause and the cause of God. Anyway, I just thought it was opportune with the way that I sign off my streams. Scary sounds outside, I tell you what. Here in this local zone of the world, the wind is special. So, um, man, I lost track. All right, we're gonna look up a Bible verse. It's the best way to get things started. Hello, welcome. I hope the audio is working.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
fantastic. I can hear you, and I believe anybody that isn't, nobody's watching the stream right now, but
Okay.
it goes into the ether, into eternity. You know how it works.
Yeah.
So,
Are you
yeah, go ahead.
you don't have me on video, do you?
Not on video,
Okay.
your icon can be seen.
Oh,
Uh,
that's fine. Yeah, I'm not worried about my icon. It's
yeah,
probably just some silly guy with a bird behind him.
yep, holding
Yeah.
a force accelerator.
Yeah, yeah. That's my It's the ongoing joke that I'm always the resident fed on any Discord servers.
Fantastic.
We
So,
were talking about birds are fake one day, so that's just
ah,
what ended up.
yeah, every time. So here's what I find really interesting about the birds are fake topic. I was watching a funny YouTuber. His name is Stephen He. He's Asian. He's actually straight up American, but he plays an Asian. Well, I mean, he's ethnically Asian. Whatever, you get it. He he mocks and does a caricature of the Chinese culture and accent and all of that, even though he's. But anyway, he did a video featuring flat Earth as a topic, and one quarter, like maybe not even 25%, maybe like 15% into his video, he starts talking about he's mocking somebody that's talking about measuring and measuring the ground and stuff with a tape measure
Nice.
on little tiles on the floor. So, and then he goes into the birds aren't real thing, and this person that he's imitating is talking about how birds aren't real and why they sit on the electric line so they can charge, and all that meme information. So here, my comment on his video um, was, I love straw men.
Yeah.
I and I just I don't know if anybody. So I recently got this is I'm kind of switching topics, but it's related. I just got an email a week ago or so from YouTube that was like telling me my history of YouTube behavior. Um, I find it weird when I get emails that I've been on YouTube for well a long time. Um, and all of a sudden I get a stats email. So it told me how many comments, lifetime YouTube comments I've made. Um, it was like 19,000 um,
Wow.
comments on YouTube videos, and I'll, obviously like some videos I've maybe left five or I mean the average would be one. There's a handful of videos where I got in quote unquote conversations with folks, but on average it's just one hit and run comment that I leave. But some people do Reddit, some people do blogs, some people do Twitter, some people do Facebook. YouTube has been my thing, at least you know in a way it's been my thing. And I don't know what that link is.
Oh, that's the When You Discover the Earth is Flat by Stephen He. I just
Ye-
put it in there.
Thank you for the reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put my comment. I mean, he had quite a few comments, and I always scroll through it. I like, what is the viewership? What is the audience of this content creator? What do they like? And and in this case, they were all. I don't like this word, but I still use it because I don't have a better alternative. But they were all the normie crowd, where they gave
Right.
basic visceral, I think that's the right word, responses of like
What do they
disdain
like?
disdain and hatred for the even thinking about the question. um and it's kind of interesting. I was just on Jim Bob's server, and somebody posted a picture um about I think it was from Reddit, and it was the question, what is in the vaccine, and then
Right.
somebody's response to that, and then but the key feature of this was the like versus dislike per thing, and it was like -24 on the what is in the vaccine question, and then plus 20 something on the response, which was the answer that they gave was science is in the vaccine.
Right.
So the interesting aspect there, of course, is just people's disdain or hatred for questions, and or I mean, I know that oversimplifies what people, because I don't think that if you were talking to a green and blue haired um, crazy that they be, I don't think they'd be like, yes, I hate questions, I hate all questions. I don't think that that's the way that they would put it themselves.
Well, I think it's more of a point to they just hate truth, and anything that discerns the truth they have to fight because otherwise it breaks up their worldview,
In
right?
their words, I
They're
don't think that they would ever agree to that though, because
right.
I
But
think
I
that
mean, even on a so let me give you an example from something that happened recently. Is I had a discussion with one of my coworkers,
yeah, yeah.
who's recently come into the office, and he was explaining his worldview, which was very nihilistic and solipsistic, right? In that he only does things that meet his desired outcome. Doesn't matter how he does it. Doesn't matter what the consequences are, as long as the outcome is positive for what he looks like to his superiors, right? And so I refuted him with just stating biblical facts, right? And and things that have been established as true, and then some of the regulations that we have to deal with, and some of the laws we have to deal with. And you could tell once I had reached a certain point, he just tried to use his physical size and intimidation to subdue the conversation, because at that point he knew what was real. He knew what the truth was, and it contradicted 100% of what he wanted to accomplish for himself. And since he knew he wasn't winning the disagreement in front of others, he then tried to challenge me on a physical level, and he got the same response. I'm not afraid of any man, right?
Hmm.
And so it just kind of devolved in there to the point where he spent 24 hours and calling other people that I work with to try and get them in his favor. And it ate on his soul for a good 24 hours before he was finally able to reset himself and come in the next day. So at some level, it does affect them because, like everyone has truth in their heart. Everyone knows truth. Some people just actively seek to move away from truth.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But
It's interesting as you were telling me that story. It was reminding me of the sermon I heard on this past Sunday. Um, Country preacher out here in people don't think of North Dakota as very country, but it's not country like Kentucky or North Carolina, but it's country in a different way. Um, but anyway, he told like the key feature of the sermon was on the word whatever. When people say the word whatever in an argument, it means that they are technically giving up. They know that you're right, but they're unwilling um, to expose or agree that they were wrong. Um, it was a fascinating little sermon and detail to think about. But then he tied it in with what Mary, Jesus' mother, said when she used the word whatever he tells you to do, do it. That's it was a little bit of a weird connection, but it worked. It was nice. I was going to be looking up this verse that I read earlier this week. Maybe this is it. No, that's Psalm 107. So there's somewhere in the Gospels, I believe it's in the Gospels, where it's talking about Jesus healing a crowd. But in this instance, it says that he healed them with a word, not like a special word, but like emphasizing that all it took was him to say a word, um, and they were like a crowd was healed. It seemed as though it was insinuating that a whole crowd was healed when Jesus said a word. Um,
right.
and I'm not. I should have saved it. I try to save
Well, I
verses.
know. Yeah. I know in Acts there's the handkerchief that healed, or the. Am
Yeah,
I saying that right?
yeah, I know
Yeah.
what you mean. Well, we're not talking about the shroud.
Right, right. No, not the shroud, not at all.
Yeah.
It's the it in Acts they blessed a cloth and then sent that out and that healed people.
Yes. Yes. I found it. I love it when I
Okay.
find what I'm looking for instead of clawing for hours and wanting to beat myself up for my failures. Um, all right, so it's Matthew chapter 8 verse 16. This is when he's healed Simon's mother-in-law. So he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and began to serve them. Just awesome. Why? Why? These spots are everywhere. Like I'm always like I'm the least. I'm the least important person for you to visit. I know that they just do it algorithmically or whatever, but I'm always amazed. Block user on YouTube. Yeah, you're gone. Blocked. Um, anyway, back to the Bible. When evening came, many who were demon possessed were brought to Jesus, and he drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the. Okay, so I read it wrong. I mean, he drove out the spirits with a word, and then
Right.
and healed all the sick. So I wanted to kind of dive into well, of course it's going to be logos,
Oh no, that's
but
the centurion service. I have my notes on my Bible Gateway, and I just so happen to have this entire verse highlighted with notes.
oh yeah, okay,
And then it's got, so here's the two other references that link to that as well in Mark and in Isaiah. So I'm gonna put those in the Discord chat.
yeah. Isaiah
So,
53:4. Yeah, let me Bible. All right.
and that's 14 through 17. So that's the Peter's house all the way up to he took our infirmities and bore out our diseases. So,
4 and 5. Yeah. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. Um, yes. Okay. And
and
then
then Mark 1:30 through 34,
30.
which should just be Mark's retelling of the same
Same event.
incident. Yeah,
Had left the synagogue.
slightly different. Yeah.
They went with
Sorry.
James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was sick in the bed with a fever, and they promptly told Jesus about her. So he went to her, took her by the hand, and helped her up. The fever left her. See, and Mark definitely. I always perceived Mark as the shorter, more brief guy, but
Right.
but in this instance, he seems to be more descriptive than Matthew, which is kind of the exception. Um,
Yeah. Matthew was very
detailed.
detailed. Yeah, very
Yeah.
detailed oriented. But he was also the preacher to the Jews as well. Whereas Mark was um, how do I put this without sounding stupid or wrong? Not the Jews. I think he was more gospel to the Gentiles. Mark was.
Yeah, yeah. So he went. Fever left her and began. The fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening, after sunset, people brought to Jesus all who were sick and demon possessed, and the whole town gathered at the door. And he healed many who were ill with various diseases and drove out many demons. But he would not allow the demons to speak because they knew who he was. So in this instance, there's no emphasis on how, um, where the Matthew, oh, that's how many? Oh yeah, it was here. I was like, I've got too many little tabs open. Um, yeah, because apparently in this instance, it might be a word, it might be a speech, it might not be a singular utterance. Um, basically, so everything that I was like, oh, this is really cool and interesting. Um, I read it basically too literally. Which happens quite often with me and my very literal brain. Ironically, I read Mr. Literal too literally. Now, I was reading the English translation, of course, but still, Matthew being very literal, very detail oriented. Um, there's a little bit of irony that I would make it over literal. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, he quotes Isaiah right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Well,
nice.
I mean, that's Jesus in a nutshell, though. He was always like he was he was always preaching through Scripture of the Bible. So
Charles has joined us.
nice.
I have indeed.
Italy deep.
Yeah,
And we've got video fantastic.
Nice.
we do indeed have video. What you drinking there?
Um, a man named Dell from the Oscar Blues Brewery, Dell's Pale Ale. Um, he sponsored this video with in spirit without knowing it.
Very, very good.
That may or may not be an accurate statement. Probably not. But
So I didn't realize that apple cider vinegar is incredibly easy to make.
if you have a starter, right?
Well, considerably apples being a starter.
Okay, so you don't need any bacterial like mother to kick it.
Nope. You need sugar,
Sugar, yeah,
apples,
apples.
and water, and it will actually the bacteria will actually start from the apples themselves.
Yeah. So I've done that with ginger, um, so making a ginger bug. So I've done that. I've also done that with garlic, but not with sugar. I I might have added a little bit of sugar, but when I did
For
some,
best results, you're supposed to use like actual cane sugar, but you
it's a
can pretty much use any type of sugar.
it's about that food, the food that the bacteria like.
Well, next year I'll be doing an experiment with sugar beets to actually produce sugar from sugar beets. So,
Interesting.
Evaporation method or something else.
yeah. Well,
Fantastic.
they said that for about every 10 pounds of beets you can grow, you'll get about a pound to a pound and a half of sugar out of it because they have about 10 to 15% sugar content.
Yeah, that
So,
that sounds that sounds good because you can get some beets can be a pound, one beet.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, that's neat. Um,
depending on how well you fertilize them and feed them and like the soil quality that you're growing them in, whether it's compact or loose or sandy or like you can get a fairly high yield out of sugar beets from what I understand. And I mean, like if you don't use sugar that often, conceivably you could grow 30 pounds of beets and get 3 or 4 pounds of sugar out of it and have all the sugar you need for a while.
yeah, yeah, it takes me a while to because I usually try and buy in bulk, and I'm thinking about a 3 pound bag of sugar will last me a good while, but I don't like 3 or 4 months. But I'm not. Yeah, it just depends. I use a lot of maple syrup and things that I'm baking these days. Um, for
Now it will be more of a brown sugar than it will be like a white sugar
it
because
wouldn't be
the
red.
the molasses the molasses is still in the sugar. It has to be refined out if you want to do it that way, but you'd almost need a centrifuge.
Is
Um,
beet sugar wouldn't wind up being red?
no, sugar beets are like a whitish whatever.
Oh, okay. Not regular beets. Sugar beets. Okay. So I
Yeah,
need to see one of these one day.
I'll make a video on it
Cool.
when I do it.
So we were briefly talking about this verse that struck my curiosity over the week. Lo and behold, I slightly misread it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like focused on this with a word, that Jesus drove out the spirits with a word, and I was
Mm-hmm.
taking that far more literally than it actually more than likely intended to be communicating. Um, so Iron Argon in the chat brings up something very important. He said, "Why would you ever need a centrifuge? We're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. So
Touche.
if you need any centrifugal activity, all you need to do is like just set it there, right? Something like that.
Well, technically, I would want to go closer to the equator
Equator, yeah. Gotta do that.
where the
The
spinning
most
is.
wherever it's most oblate. That would be
Yeah,
the
the most oblate part of the pear-shaped spheroid.
oh oh, it's so uncomfortable these days. I tell you.
The rules don't even work.
All right, so speaking of rules, this is interesting. So last week I kind of tried to address this topic, and I did a little bit, but the concept of judgmentalism. So I'm going to take this
Oh
opportunity.
yeah, we did have that.
Yeah. So I'm going to
Yeah,
take this opportunity to
might as well bring it back up.
use this as an example. So somebody posted a meme on a server, and it was the sand on the next to the beach, the sand on the beach, and the stars, like a picture of the stars in the sky. And they were
Hmm.
like, it was like sharing the quote of, "There's more stars in the sky than sand on all the beaches in the world." That was the quote, right? And they
Hmm.
were. So I respond to this in in a ha ha kind of way, and I was like, I wonder if, right? I wonder if Olber, which you may or may not be aware of, I'll explain for you or anybody else that might watch this. I wonder if Olber would laugh or cry or something. I'm not even quoting myself perfectly here, but I said something to the effect, I wonder if Olber would laugh or cry at this meme. It's quite a paradox, right? So Olber's paradox is a paradox that discusses the irony of there being allegedly infinite stars, and not infinite, but a lot of stars in the sky, and the claim that light is always traveling, and also the fact that when we look into the sky at nighttime, that it's not covered with stars everywhere. So there's this paradox of how they talk about light traveling and how they talk about how many stars there are, and then what we actually see. And they call it Olber's paradox. So I'm trying to make a little bit of a quippy joke off of a meme, and lo and behold, somebody goes, their response is something to the effect of, it's the whole paradigm is a lie. Um, yeah, that system isn't even real. Again, not a perfect quote, but they said something
Right, but
to that
the
effect.
general idea is that's all bullcrap.
Exactly. But the fact of the matter is, I'm over here happy-go-lucky. I, like they don't know me. I don't know them, and they're in my estimate of their response. I'm looking at this as, oh, this person kind of just took offense and or is attempting to shame me, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but this is how I'm perceiving it, right? They're they're
Mhm.
they're flexing in some way or another, um, to shame me about the truth about the universe, and the truth about this statement, or the lie, that exists within it. Lo and behold, I mean, I know, I get it, but
Yeah.
I was just making a innocent joke. But this whole thing about where we see or hear something that somebody says, and we being me and everybody else that interacts, we make assumptions based on the context that we come from, and from how we understand the world, and what we have trigger words, we have, just different ways that we perceive others, informs how we wind up responding oftentimes, unless we have a highly developed patience level, maturity, humility, these
Yeah,
aspects
I feel like
that
you can have all those things, but
that
it really comes down to you having genuine love for one another. Like,
yes, and that was actually the point that I got to last week. Was it really does come down to love and what that looks like, um, and that was the main point. And I think that love destroys. It has to destroy what's known as judgmentalism, saying,
Yeah.
hey, brother, you're living in sin. Yeah, we need to talk about this. I need to admonish you, blah blah blah. That's not what I'm referring to in regards to judgmentalism. What I'm referring to is the illusion of, admonishment, that
Well,
the
if
pretense.
I could,
Yeah, please.
Uh, what I'm hearing is an argument for action versus reaction, right? So when we're acting upon knowledge, and we're acting upon faith, and we're acting upon love, we don't use a judgmental tone for anything that we do. But
Hmm.
when we're attacked, or we perceive we're attacked, we react with pre-programmed responses that are generally not out of love, but out of self-protection, which is the opposite of love, right? Self-protection has nothing to do with
Sacrifice.
giving to
Yeah.
your brother and sacrifice. Absolutely. So that's kind of my 2 cents worth on what you're saying. And it makes perfect sense that I've been reactionary in my life a lot. And it takes a lot of faith, and it takes a lot of love for your fellow brothers and sisters to act rather than react when you're in a situation.
Yeah.
well, and I mean, I think the perfect example of that you look at, and I mean, our perfect example that we're supposed to have is Christ. I mean, how many times did someone come to him and say, "Hey, um, this is what we're supposed to be doing, and you're not doing that"? He didn't immediately throw the book at him and just be like, "Hey, you're an idiot. Like, don't you think that I would know this better than you? Like, come on, I wrote the book, man." Like,
Yeah.
that's not the attitude he has. He instead absorbs it and says, "Well, is that actually what it says? Like, did like you study this, you read it, like, is that actually what it says, or is that just the rules that you've applied to it?" Like, so, like, he calmly addresses their their issue. Like, he had every right to take offense to everything that they were saying, but he didn't. He just calmly responded to it. And, like, if we can't follow that example in everyday conversation, like, look, I don't have a problem with you, man. Like, like, you can call me whatever you want to, but the fact of the matter is I'd rather have a conversation with you, because I'm not going to win you over by beating you over the head with something, ever. Like, we have to be able to have a rational conversation even if we disagree. Because the minute that I lose control and I'm like, "Well, you're just an idiot," I've already lost the argument. Like, so there is no argument to be had anymore. And we also have to understand that other people are not where we are in our walk, in our journey. Like, we've had things revealed to us, shown to us, truth revealed to us that they may not have had revealed to them. So they come in it from a different perspective and they say, "Well, I don't see it that way." And, okay, well, I can either call them an idiot and walk away and show them no kind of love whatsoever, or I can rationally listen to their conversation and say, "You make some good points, but here's some things that I've come across that you might want to think about." No judgment imposed, no, like, obviously in a situation where there's sin in their life, depending on whether they're a believer or not. If they're not a believer, I would want to start off by explaining what that is to them, because they don't have a concept of it, and it's not my place to judge them. It is my job to share with them who God is, and I'm never sharing them with who God is if I'm judging. So, because they're supposed to see us loving one another, and when they see more bickering and backfighting and judgmentalism coming out of the church, they're never seeing a community that they want to be a part of. They're like, y'all are just a bunch of judgy hypocrites. Why would I want to be part of that? So it effectively destroys our witness. When I can't look across at you and say, oh, you think that, Jesus died on a Friday and was raised on Sunday? Oh, I don't believe that at all, so we can't even talk to him. Like,
Yeah, it's an unfortunate
that's the
fact
level of
that
ridiculousness that the church has come to.
well, it's an unfortunate fact that Christianity as a corporation has done more to harm Jesus' message than any one individual ever could, by marketing it as salvation or the prosperity gospel, or the Church of Joel or whatever corporate thing out there. Like Jim Baker used to say, Jesus wants to give me another jet. You know, when in reality, did he need another jet? He already had three. But those churches grew to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of viewers and listeners worldwide who just sent that man their money and probably got something in return through their faith, but got nothing from that man other than a bill for his jet. So those are all things we have to overcome in our personal life, especially with atheists and those that have fallen away because of those lies, because it's an even greater hurdle to overcome. And I think the best way we do that is by being the example of what a Christian should be, and not point to a particular church or a particular um, body of believers, but in being that example, being that Jesus-like person for them. We'll never get there because we're not perfect, but it's the best way to be as an example through your life. Helps you preach the gospel to others.
Well, I've had so many people that I interact with on a daily basis. They're like, you're the most religious person I know, but you're the most unlike every other religious person I know. Like, that's the statement that gets said about me. And they're like, I just don't understand how you know the same God that they do, but you live it so differently. And I'm like,
Yeah,
it's because they don't know God.
Well,
I think the
that
most startling comment I ever
that might
got
be
was,
presumptive.
yeah.
Do what?
I said that might be a little over presumptive, but go on, Shadow.
The most startling comment I ever got was here probably about 3 months ago, and one of the guys I work with, because we had been talking, like we had gone out to do some cleanup, and this is kind of end of the summer, so it would have been August, and he was a Christian too, and he and I were talking back and forth, and two of the guys we brought out there with us, one of them looks, he goes, "Man, I never would have pegged you as someone who believed in God," and I'm like, "That's probably because I was doing it wrong," and that's the statement that caught me off guard, was my response to that he didn't know I
Hmm.
was a Christian because I wasn't living that Christian life. So my first response was probably the truth in that response, that, well, I obviously haven't been doing it right then. So that's just kind of one of the revelations that I had over the summertime, which was amazing. It was definitely amazing.
And
It's an
I
epic response.
and I hear that, and that's an. I mean, I agree. That's a humble response, and probably appropriate in some ways. But you've got these people. I'm all over the internet. Not all over. I'm in a couple of niche, weird sectors of the internet. That's what I really
Nice.
should say. Um,
You might be all over the internet. You just don't know it.
but
Yeah.
I was interacting with this one person who, on a Discord group that I was on, and they were like, "I have an issue with your username and your status." So my username obviously is Gospel Bearer, and my status is Jesus is the gospel. And I briefly go into the fact that this is the most benign, unimportant um, statement of words to a non-believer. Contextually, to someone who doesn't, first of all, the gospel. right, is a word that has no meaning or importance to someone that is a non-believer. Anyway, I go through this whole description, and they poo-poo the whole thing, everything that I say, even though I was making compelling philosophical statements, of truth, in my opinion, kind of on the objective side, not very biased, whatever.
Here's the real question, Devin. Is it truth if it's your opinion, or if it's not your opinion? Does the truth change?
Opinion can be truth.
But not necessarily does your opinion true.
Of
No,
course, of course,
truth just is. Truth withstands the test of time.
exactly. So anyway,
Yeah,
they get to this point where they
hilarious.
make the statement that, um, anyway, nobody really needs to talk about the religion anyway, because if it really matters, they'll see it in your behavior and your actions. This whole the Francis of Assisi false attribution, preach to everybody, and if necessary use words that who knows who actually ever said that, probably Satan himself. Who cares about Francis of Assisi, even if he did say it? But how dare you? There's probably somebody somewhere that's like, you just defiled a great man, Saint Francis of Assisi. Anyway, so this whole concept of preach and if necessary use words, that concept is is appropriated by atheists and Satanists as an excuse to shut Christians up on one hand. And then on the other hand, the Bible does say that they shall know us by our love, which, and they'll you know them by their fruits. Fear is sharing in the chat. Um, know them by their love, know them by their fruits. Both of those statements are accurate, and both of those aren't demanding of verbal things. My retort to their little statement was, if that was absolutely true, Jesus would have been a mute. I was like, Jesus used words, and yeah. So, but that whole sentiment is extremely popular. Um, just shut up and prove it, which
Well,
is a
and I don't
specious thing. On
necessarily disagree with the statement, but the statement isn't mutually exclusive. Like,
Yeah,
you should be doing that, but that doesn't excuse you from actually speaking either. So,
Right. No, it's got to be a good combination. I mean, well, we had gone over, my Bible study group had gone over Matthew, and we just finished that up and we're into Acts. And one of the key points about the fruits is the fruits aren't a labor thing. The fruits are are the result of your application of faith and love. So as you grow in faith and as you grow in love, your fruits are manifest in your behavior, right? So
yeah, our church did
as a
a
concept.
study on fruits a little while ago, and it's interesting that it's built almost like a pyramid. Like,
Right.
love begets joy, joy begets peace, peace begets patience. Like, so, like, and these are all things that come out of actually practicing love. Like, if you love someone, you're going to have joy. If you love someone, you're going to have peace, and you're going to have patience, and you're going to have kindness, because these are all of the expressions of love that God shows towards us.
Right.
Like, so, like, it's only natural that if you are existing in the spirit, you're going to have all of those things, because you're loving others in the way that God loves you, which is exactly what he told you to do. So, like,
Right. And they're
there,
they're they're directly proportional. It's not an inverse, right? So it's not like Ohm's law where you have the triangle where division of one equals the sum of the other, right? It's a
right.
combination of all three is the goal. But I think more times than often the atheists put it into an Ohm's law equation or a Watt's law equations where if you're lopsided on one, that must be a deficiency in the other, and that's a
Well, and,
downfall as
and where
opposed to
does
just a
it
place you need to grow.
And this is the
But
thing too. It states, like, this is the thing that I think a lot of people miss too, is it's the fruit of the spirit is all of these things. It never says that you're going to have all of them at the same time, that you're going to have all of them in an equal measure, that they're all going to be available to you at every second of every day.
Can I get
They
a
right,
just
verse?
are the fruits of the spirit,
It's
and they are available and they are going to be given to you. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you die today, I'm lacking patience, must not have the Holy Spirit. Like,
right.
that's not the way it works.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
It's
and the
it's
great thing about that is the when the Holy Spirit works through you, it augments those fruits in a supernatural way. So where you're being used as a vessel to convey a message to someone through the Holy Spirit while you're conferring with someone or while you're proselytizing, right? It'll augment those particular fruits to give benefit to the other person. And Acts pretty much teaches us most of these things.
yeah. But I've heard so many people that are like, well, I must not have the Holy Spirit because I'm not patient and I'm not kind and I'm not, like, but there are times that you are, and they're
there
in
it is.
Yeah.
situations where you need to be when you're not an overly kind person. Like
I was
Yeah, no, I mean this whole Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit is pure love, only love, but sometimes love is tough love. Sometimes love is a harsh word in retribution. So I don't know,
so
understand where these atheists get this only love concept.
there's that, and I'm actually thinking that it, context is important, and who you're talking to and how well you know them. But if somebody does come out with, well, God is love, right? And why would a loving God? I think that an appropriate response is God hates,
hmm
and and then
Right.
and then see how they react to the statement God hates. Well, what are you talking about? Well, have you never? I mean, you just are trying to quote scripture to me. Um, you're trying to share with me words of scripture that God is loving and that God is love. You would also have read in the Bible that, and don't quote me on this, but I actually think that it says God hates more in the Bible than it says God loves. Um,
Well, here I'll drop it. I'll drop it in the chat, and you can pull it up if you want to. It's Proverbs 6:16 through 19. It's the six things which God hates.
yeah, that's a good
well, I mean,
reference.
I could list the
And
seventh
the
right off
seventh,
the top of my
yeah,
head. Esau,
yeah,
he hated
yeah,
that dude.
Yes,
yeah.
and then of course I think it's important to get into the conversation about defining hate in a Hebrew uh, in the Hebrew original meaning of that word. Um, it's not it's not the same meaning that we have in American English, and I think we've talked about it on stream before. Um, but the type of hatred is an um, utter negligence, utmost negligence, and utmost putting away, detestable. Like, and I mean, it does say that's a translated word in Proverbs 16,
Right.
detestable. Six things that the Lord hates, seven that are detestable to him. So there's a little bit of a distinction there, but in regards to Jacob, I loved and Esau, I hated. Um, it is my understanding. I read a lot of commentaries on this as a teenager because I was like, "What does this mean?" Um, and it seemed as though, and every learned man on the subject came to the conclusion that this was a hatred of neglect, um, a hatred of the opposite of favor. Whereas Jacob was favored, selected, chosen, and Esau was not. Um, that
Well,
he was
in
the
that scenario,
neglected
I
one.
think I remember looking at the wording in that as well, and it was almost just rejection word for hate. Like, it's
Rejection would be a
like,
good way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, like Esau, or like Jacob I've accepted and Esau I rejected.
Hmm.
Like, Just it was that it's almost that type of a saying, but I mean, it's true. Obviously,
I lose your audio all of a sudden.
I had an incoming call. I'll call back.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's almost like Hebrew obviously has its little nuances of harsh. It's harsher than that, but it's not in the same way we perceive it. Like another word I've been studying lately is hesed in the Hebrew. Hesed, I
Hesed,
think is
yeah.
how you say it. Which is basically like covenantal loving kindness. Like it's a really bizarre uh combination of, it takes about 7 to 8 words in English to actually wrap up what the one word in Hebrew means, and it
Hmm.
still doesn't do it justice. Like, because it's not a concept that exists to us. It's like, I'm kind and loving because I have to be. Like, it's a covenantal, like, I've promised that I will be this way. So I will be this way because I've promised it. So it's almost like a thing that agrees with it. Like, it's such a weird word, but it comes up all the time. Like, the word almost completely embodies what Christ told us to do. And it's the way God built his covenants in the Old Testament with hesed towards his people. And that's how people are supposed to treat each other when they know him, is with hesed. And it's like, the more you dig into it and the more you follow this, it's like, it's so intertwined in the entirety of scripture. But it's so misunderstood because every time you read it in English, it's just loving kindness.
It,
Yeah,
I
it's
just
a translate. It's transliteral. So the English slave language doesn't have the poetry to describe these things that Latin and Greek would have.
I just recently
Yeah.
did some reading on the word agape, and um the if you just look up Strong's Concordance, right, or Blue Letter Bible, whatever tool you want to use, and look at all the times that agape is used. Um, so um, I think that the word agape, for instance, is used in the verse about for the love of money, right? Um, people, sermons and popularization led people to think that agape was this special type of passionate love, like true love, in the same way that you would have for a spouse, right, or a child, which is true, but there's a neglect of the fullness of this word and the fact that it's used, or rather, it adds to the significance of idolatry when you understand that agape is used in the context of people with different vices that have agape for food or any other form of idolatry that they might have. They have agape for that. Um, what I so I don't want to sound too confusing in what I'm saying, but what I'm trying to say is that the word agape has a fuller meaning than is conveyed on the negative side. That agape
Yeah.
is not just a happy butterflies and rainbows word; it's actually also associated with agape of um, or fornication, agape of other sins, and a lot of
It almost has an addiction type feel to it. Like,
commitment,
yeah, commitment, but like, it's almost more full than commitment. You know, like, you're
devoted,
intertwined.
idolatry, intertwined. That's a good, because idolatry is not quite right, because you can agape your spouse or your child and it's not sinful, but you could also idolize your child or spouse and that would be sinful. So it's not idolatry. It is
But
more,
you're intertwined with it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
it's got a grip on you, and you have like, you're obsessed with it. Like, it's
exactly. It's your
like,
most
that's like,
it's the most precious
agape is
thing to
almost
you.
obsession. Yeah.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily evil, but you need to understand the word that it's also used with vices and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. I'll read these verses real quick from Proverbs. I know it's in the chat. There are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Haughty eyes, which is I mean, still to this day, that phrase escapes me, but let me continue. A lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, um, abortion doctors. It is what it literally translates to there. I'm kidding. Um, it
I'm not. I'll make that.
yeah, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that run swiftly to evil. Antifa, I think is how that reads in the modern English translation. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean,
A false witness.
on that point, like I heard an explanation of this the
Yeah.
other day that actually made me look at things in a slightly different light. Like with the whole Antifa and the different circumstances that surround that type of a person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the claim that this person made was Antifa are just the um they're the same type of a person as the people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th last year.
Hmm. They
And
didn't.
they're just
Go
a
ahead. Go ahead.
different circumstance of the same type of person. So they're saying that if you took that person who thinks they're being a patriot and storming the Capitol and you put them in the same neighborhood as that kid in Portland that grew up the way he did, they're going to end up in the same place. They're not a different person. They're just different circumstances. So they're doing the same thing with the same motivation, thinking that they're tearing down an establishment that's oppressing them, but neither one of them are doing anything that's beneficial to anyone.
Well, they're
So.
both living under a deception,
Hmm.
and that's the
Yeah,
primary deal. Is they're both deceived, and they're both deceived by the same supernatural force who seeks to divide Christianity and Christians from everything. So nothing government does is in line with God's plan because they seek to unify people artificially without Jesus' return. That's one of the big problems with the Talmudic brethren, right? Is they seek to heal the world and bring the world back together. When in all
yeah,
actuality, we know from Revelations and from Book of Isaiah and some of these other Gospels that doesn't happen until Jesus returns and has his kingdom on earth. So
Yeah.
these people they believe in nothing, therefore they're sold to believe whatever is sold to them through the deceiver.
well, and
Yeah.
they've fallen for the same lie that a lot of Christians fall for, in the fact that they believe that their governance has something to do with people. And it's like, no, that's not. God already set out your governance for his people a long time ago. So if you're swearing allegiance to the king, the true king, then your governance is set in front of you. Go follow it. Like, you don't have any, like, this is not your kingdom. You don't serve this king. Like, you're
Yeah.
not from here. Like,
I
you
think
don't
I
belong
think
here.
Jesus said it best when he said, "You only have authority over me because God allows it."
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it like, to me it comes down to like, oh, I already have a king, I don't need another one. Like, I live in your land and I'll pay you your taxes because that is what I was commanded to do. Like, but I don't owe you any more than that.
So via our collective friend, Mr. Ignoramus, if you, I say our collective friend because I feel like you guys might know who I'm talking about. He's
Yeah,
my
I
my
have an
my
idea.
my friend at the very least. Um,
I think I've had a singular conversation with him in my entire life.
so
My memory doesn't last longer than 24 hours, so I'll take your word for it.
yeah, no, he's a good guy. Stephen Ignoramus on um, YouTube, Twitch, and all the other streaming platforms. He does music, he does news, he does a handful of different things. But he was living in the area at that time. He no longer does. Um, but he was living in the DC area, and he was there that day, inside and outside, filming. And if it weren't for his personal presence there, I would have probably a different perspective. But I watched his live stream live. I don't even know that it still exists at this point, at least online, because he was terrorized by the FBI um, at least twice, um, and then he lost his job because they did some type of ritual shame adventure campaign against him, and all this stuff. The fact of the matter was he was literally being a journalist that day and nothing more. Uh, so anyway, every time I hear the word insurrection or storming or any of that, I heard what those people were saying inside of that building. I heard what they were saying on the patio outside of the windows and doors. Um, and there was some provocateurs, some suspicious provocateurs,
Yeah,
and
they were
then
probably feds to begin with. They
y-
usually are.
yeah, and then there were the people, and the people, not the provocateurs. There were two or three that I recognized, and they were repeat offenders. I saw them more than once, inside and outside,
Ooh,
and
quick question. Did one of them have a white shirt, one of them have a green shirt, and one of them have a red shirt? It's a theory I'm working on.
I
If you
don't
can remember, let me know.
I don't white. I would
So,
imagine white, but I can't remember green or red.
so
I know red is a go to color for
well, if you get the opportunity to go back through all the BLM videos, they're online,
yeah
and in every instance where there's a group of about 11 to 15 people, there's three individuals who are wearing different colored shirts among the black shirts.
yeah
One's a white shirt, one's a red shirt, and one's a blue shirt, and they each have individual roles. And as you watch them, you can see what their roles are.
yeah.
It's actually pretty fascinating.
I've seen the red.
Well, and now it's actually coming out. The more they dig into it and the more they investigate it, that so many of the accounts that they originally stated were like complete 180s from what they originally stated.
Oh
Like
yeah.
Ashley Babbitt was trying to stop someone from getting into the speaker's office, and that's what got her shot.
Yeah, there's always the narrative to sell the to sell it to one side or the other. But the one thing we absolutely know about all media is all media lies. So once you establish that they lie, you no longer have to believe a word they say.
Yeah. So I was
Well, I
definitely
like the way George. I'm not a big how do you say this, advertiser of his materials, but I like the way George Carlin put it. You don't get facts anymore. You just get spin.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get what the left thinks about it, you get what the right thinks about it, but you never actually get the facts anymore. And the fact that George Carlin was saying that in the 1980s is horrifying.
Well, it's
So,
probably because it became true in the 1960s and he was able to talk about it after it had been established because at that point it was a joke because they had already
yeah.
moved those rules in. So, like all things, the comedian up front always gets banished. And then the comedian that comes after him after everything's been established gets praised. So,
Yeah.
so after a handful of years knowing about some of the details related to Ted Kaczynski, I finally listened to his entire manifesto um, earlier this week, and I my conclusion. I don't know if you've listened to it or read it, but I have mixed feelings about it because on one hand, there seems to be a lot of sincerity and good points, and on the other hand, I feel like there's some subversion that either accidentally leaked through because he's an MK Ultra victim, or because he was literally carrying out a narrative that was fed to him. And I don't know which, because if that is the case, then the depth and the elaborateness of that is just extreme. If you read it
Well, have you
or
ever have
listen
you
to
ever
it,
have you ever done any like looking into of Charles Manson and all
No,
the stuff that happened with him? Holy
no,
smokes! Like if
no.
Yeah,
that
there's
dude
some
wasn't a
serious occult stuff there.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
there
thought that
was, but like
is he a
how many
victim?
times he was caught by the police and released and caught and
Oh,
released and
okay.
caught and released and like so like they were feeding him hallucinogens, they were
Yes.
programmed like all like it was like this like they knew what he was doing and were coaching him on how to do it better to record the
Yeah,
results.
yeah, exactly. And
Probably.
and this is why I keep on throwing in chat. And I think I got myself in a little trouble on Wednesday. Wait, today is Thursday, so it would have been Tuesday, I believe. On Barricade Garage's live stream, I hop in the chat and I'm like, because it's the live stream that Barricade Garage titled, um, oh gee, what did he title it? Um, oh, Fear Factor. So Barricade
Oh, yep,
Garage's
yep, yep.
stream called Fear Factor. I hop in the chat at the beginning of the chat. I'm like, Maps is MK Ultra or Operation MK Ultra. Joe Rogan is the mouthpiece of CIA and the CIA asset. Blah blah blah. Just weird. I just like to throw little kick some beehives. Not that the people that watch Barricade Garage don't know most of that kind of stuff on the but there's a lot of people that lean towards normie and would like Joe Rogan that watch Barricade Garage. So I like to kind of
I actually like listening to Joe Rogan every now and again just to
so
I actually like the dialogue between him and his guests when his guests like check him on his facts and stuff. It's kind of funny.
so you're familiar with MK Ultra, correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
LSD and all that, right?
Oh yeah.
All right. So there's MAPS, a nonprofit organization that exists today in this society and day and age, a multidisciplinary association of psychedelic something. I can't remember what the
Yeah.
S stands for. I'm sorry, I just can't remember. But MAPS is the acronym for the organization. A kid, 21, 22, 23, 19, I don't know, he's somewhere between 19 and 23. Matthew North, I believe it was his name, did a huge breakdown of Maps and Joe Rogan. Um, and it's very difficult to find the videos. I have links that I can post for anybody that needs it or wants it. Um, Jim Bob shared the links months ago, and that's how I actually kind of learned about it. But anyway, it is my conclusion that Maps is Operation MK Ultra. Um, they are utilizing MDMA, LSD, and
What the hell? Sorry.
you found it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but I don't know why it keeps going. I hit stop on it like a minute ago.
Oh
Sorry,
no,
guys.
it's okay. Life
Okay, I
happens.
think everything's good now. Usually I shut my desktop off because I'm on my phone. Let me go ahead and just mute my whole entire computer at this point. There we go.
It's all
All
right.
right. No more interruptions. My bad.
So you found the Matthew North exposure of Maps and Joe Rogan thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, here I'll
So
just pop it in there. So
But I
Matt.
mean, is it also equally possible that anybody that opens themselves up to that are going to have those behaviors? Like the MDMA and like
Yeah. Yes, but
because they've allowed their mind to be broken like that.
well, it's a
so
Now
vacated
they're
spirit,
entirely
right? So
susceptible. Well, I'm not sure it's necessarily that, but like they may have interacted with the spirit, and I mean all of the spirits
right.
that they're going to interact with are going to give them the same types of information. So I mean they're just opening a doorway to let something poison their mind.
so
So
in regards to Maps, not letting them get away with being just a hypothetical weirdo organization. They're associated with the Bohemian Grove. They're
yeah, I mean that makes
and they are associated with Joe Rogan one way or another. I don't remember all of the details. You should be able to look into that video. BITCH is censored in my chat, so that's why BitChute was censored in the chat. You might notice,
Oh yeah, yep, gotcha.
but
It's
you
fine.
but you can go
If you can't
to
figure it out from bitshoot.com, there's something wrong with you.
exactly, but you can find it out from the tag there, Duke for JCUE 2S3Q.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so here's what annoys me is Steven Crowder and all the mainstream conservative voices that are like Joe Rogan is being canceled. Please, they're rallying behind the guy, not just validating him, but what's the other word? Um,
You talking about like an elevation,
Endorsing
like
him.
putting
They're
endorsing. Yeah,
they're
that's a good word.
they're inadvertently um, endorsing him. Even it's I think that Anomaly. I really love Anomaly. I believe he's a brother. Um, I've heard too many things that he's said um, years ago when he was investigating Luciferianism. I don't know if you remember that or recall that, but in his interview with Owen Benjamin about 3 or 4 years ago, he was like, I'm kind of open to all these things and looking into, I'm reading this, I'm reading that. And, people have said, great things, loving and amazing things about Owen. People have admonished him and criticized him and said the worst things about Owen Benjamin. Um, but one thing I can't forget is that he told Anomaly, you you it's all about Jesus. Read the Bible, keep on reading the Bible, and don't stop. And that's not an exact quote, but it was that serious and that it was on that level of Jesus, Bible. Just
Just
no,
do it.
no,
Yeah.
no to the devil. That's that's not good. And it was the very first interview that he did. I'm pretty sure the first interview he did with Anomaly, um, 2.5, 3 years ago. And at this point, Anomaly reps hard, unabashedly, unashamed, in front of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. He has a huge following, and and yeah, I'm excited about what he's doing. And anyway, I had a point that I was getting to with Anomaly. Oh yeah,
You said
Anomaly
something
talked
about
about
the
Joe Rogan, and
yeah.
in doing so, he also said, the disclaimer, right? I don't agree with, whether or not you agree with everything he said. Instead of being like, Joe Rogan, champion of free speech and all these like really praise lifting up things that people are saying about the guy. Um, I was I was appreciative of somebody
I mean, I
cautiously
can I can give
addressing.
Joe Rogan I can give Joe Rogan credit without liking the guy. Like he is a very strong advocate of free speech. He is a um
Yeah, but wouldn't the devil
I would put him on the like
wouldn't the devil be an advocate of free speech? I like
well sure,
I
but
just see
like
Joe Rogan as
but
a
what
demonic
people
entity.
well I don't think he's that. He's confused and he needs Jesus. I'll give him that. Like but so does everybody. But in if he is programmed, then he's just a dude that's in a lot of pain, honestly. Um, and
He promotes psychedelics and is a
yeah,
mouthpiece of maps and demonic experiences. He sparks the fascination of entertaining demons, and encourages people to participate in that world. That's what I
sure,
mean by I see him
that's
as demonic.
yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with any of that, but that doesn't make any of the cultural points that he makes less relevant. And the fact that he gives people that otherwise the mainstream completely shuts out a voice. And like, I'll give him credit. He's one of the only people that's doing that, and unashamedly.
Well, he has a
Does that mean I
huge,
agree with it? Huh?
huge fault. He has a huge, so he has
Yeah.
multiples of times larger audience than CNN.
Yeah.
Well, and like, to be like, I listened to one episode because one of my buddies was like, dude, you got to listen to this episode. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll check it out. He's like, this dude is talking about all of these exact same things that you talk about all the time, and
Mhm.
I think you would enjoy it. And I was like, okay. And so I went and listened to it, and this man sat there and preached at Joe Rogan for 2.5 hours, like talking. And he has an inner city missions that he teaches kids martial arts in, I think it's Minneapolis is where he does it. And this man is like on fire for Jesus. And he went on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's like, well, how do you deal with the meditation and everything? He's like, I just meditate on scripture. And he's like, and that works for you? He's like, yeah, Joe, you need Jesus. Like, you need to find Jesus. Like, and like, he preached to him for 2.5 hours, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. Like, this man is being sat in front of him to preach the gospel to him. Like, it was really cool. And but I mean, he wasn't receptive to it, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't expect him to be, because he's wrapped up in the demonism that he is. But I mean, like, it's I look at Joe Rogan and I see a confused, hurting person. Like, because I look at anybody that doesn't have Jesus and I see a confused, hurting person. They don't know what they're doing because they're stupid.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is he's no worse or better than anyone else without Jesus. Like,
Yeah, I hear you on
he
that.
promotes all of the things that he thinks are going to lead him to enlightenment, and he's broken and confused. I pray for the guy, honestly, a lot, because I'm like, man, if he would ever actually know Jesus, man, he would be a mouthpiece like no other.
And that's the
Uh,
thing. I mean, Anomaly. Maybe I'm more familiar with him because I've seen his content and really dug into the timeline of Anomaly's content, from cussing and including, he he was clean in a way, but he also cussed a lot in his music. Um, to again, unabashedly
Die hard for Jesus, yeah.
repping Jesus. Um, and that's exciting to me only because it's not a celebrity conversion. It's you can you can literally see you can see the change, in more ways than one. I just appreciate that. But
Well,
um,
and the point I was trying to make with that whole uh, I'm again, I'm not defending Joe Rogan and anything he
I got
does.
you
Like, that's the disclaimer that, like, that he put out, that I'll put out too. I'm not defending him or anything that he does, but he is an advocate of what the modern world would consider free speech. But the problem with that is, and these crowders and people standing up for him as this big advocate of all these things, is they don't realize that it's two sides of the same coin. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're conservative or liberal or shutting people down or not shutting people down, or you're a tyrant or you're a free, like, it doesn't, none of it matters if you don't have Christ. Like, and it's all a distraction from what really matters. So it doesn't, like, of course they're gonna throw in their towel for him because he's doing something that benefits them, but it's all an illusion. Like, they're all on the same side, and it's the wrong side. So, like, it doesn't, like, these labels and everything that everybody's stuck on everything, it's irrelevant because it's all an illusion.
hmm
So, like, it doesn't matter what side of the losing side you're on, you're still on the losing side.
yeah, for sure,
So, like,
Yeah,
that's
important
the
thing to
only point I
remember,
was trying to make. Like,
especially.
of course they're going to jump in and defend him because he stands for
Yeah.
something that they like.
Well, I think the important thing to remember is that even the devil has to bow to God's will. So, and it wouldn't be the first time in history where God has used a wicked man as a mouthpiece. So these are all important things to retain when you see these public figures. But as
for
far as
sure.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan is concerned, I don't know Joe Rogan from that I know from some guy named Steve, right? So I've never actually watched any of his stuff. But I would suppose that the reason he doesn't change 100%, or he's resistant to the ways of God, is he would lose he would lose the accolades that he has now because they would be stripped of him. Because as soon as he changed his narrative from what was popular, the people that employ him would stop employing him.
Well, he recently did an interview with Jim Gaffigan, which is a comedian with loose
Yeah, I watched that one.
with loose Catholic associations. Jim Gaffigan, um, and it was fascinating. I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw it through a YouTube channel that I follow called "What Do You Meme." Um, I really
Are
like.
you talking about the clip where he was like, "You're going to hell"? Like,
It was more so. It was what was it? Jim Gaffigan was making a profound. He was making a profound statement about hypocrisy in Christianity. I can't even remember what it was, but it was impressive. And What Do You Meme? YouTube channel is a black guy that does Christian commentary on pop culture and stuff and other biblical things, but also like he'll take something that somebody says in a broad way about Christianity or about the Bible, and he'll address it. And he also really solid guy. Um, yeah, good guy. Um, but that's where I saw that, and it's interesting. It was unexpected because Jim Gaffigan is what's the word for it? Irreverent a lot of the
yeah,
time. Um,
he
not
claims to be a non-practicing Catholic.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
he's way into big global homo and a bunch of stuff like that.
okay, so he might even be worse than Dane Cook.
Oh, for
I
sure.
don't
Yeah,
think that's even possible, is it? Dane Cook's pretty terrible. So.
So look up Dane Cook's joke, his "bless you" joke.
yeah,
Um,
I heard that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I saw him live in Houston. I'm
one of the
joking.
best jokes that Christians could use ever, and I was just like, wow, that's pretty profound. And then he turns around 2 seconds later and talks about Catholics diddling little boys, and I'm like, what? You just ruined any
yeah,
ounce of credibility you could
I
have
know,
just had.
I know.
So,
Dane Cook with that joke. Was it just pandering? Maybe. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I every now and then I read or hear about certain celebrity conversions. Chris Tucker supposedly um, is among that list of celebrities, that are supposedly repping Jesus. I don't know all the details about Chris Tucker, but he did turn down an opportunity to play in the sequel to Friday um, because he saw it as unholy to try to encourage people into weed smoking and all that stuff, and supposedly because he's a Christian. Um, then you got
yeah,
Denzel Washington and a handful of other folks that.
Denzel Washington is one of my favorite men.
Did you say Denzel Washington beard?
Washington.
Washington. Yeah, I don't know about that. The Book of Eli. What
Yeah,
is washing beard?
I don't know. It's just something funny. It's an inside joke thing that I have with myself, I guess. I
Oh,
don't.
gotcha.
But
I
either
do.
way, I
I
gotta
do.
jump off here. So
Yeah, I'm gonna probably just go ahead and wrap things
Jesse
up for
wanted
the.
to know, according to just random internet blog and stats, 77% of people that were polled thought Dane Cook was a homosexual. So I'm just letting you know. I don't know
but
why. It's
apparently
just
has an illegitimate baby with Jessica Alba. That makes complete sense.
right. The other 23% like to think that he was just bisexual, so that's fine.
How unusual to me. I don't see it at all, but
Like
people.
zero, like it's actually the first time I've ever seen a random internet poll where zero thought he was straight.
That's funny.
Wow, wow.
uh,
But yeah, it's a good time to go ahead and wrap things up and say goodnight. I am doing my best to make this consistent on Thursday nights, starting at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Um, and Lord willing, I'll I'll do better with the organizing topics and stuff like that. But
I kind of
anybody
like
and
being a free for all, honestly, just letting the conversation go where it goes. But
oh
just
yeah,
having like a main point that you're kind of dancing around.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Good stuff. Well, thank you both of you to for joining me. Last week was a little lonely.
yeah, like
Well,
last week was my daughter's 10th birthday, so I was
yeah.
like, oh,
Gotcha.
Some people
priorities.
need prompting that you're still alive too. Like I don't hit the internet all that often, so that I caught you on Jim Bob's Discord today was probably the blessing I needed for a little bit of rebel rousing. So yeah,
Good.
Yeah,
Good,
for sure.
I
good stuff.
appreciate you letting me be on.
Well,
Like
I wanted
usual.
to share. I shared it at the beginning of the stream, but let me get that not
Yeah, I
blurry.
saw it. I was
So
reading it while you were
I'm really
sitting.
happy that I got this hoodie from a rapper named Jay Monty. I really like his.
Nice.
I like his music a whole lot, and I have for many years now. But I saw his merch, and I was like, bro, I complete all of my streams with don't follow your way, follow Yahweh. And I saw this hoodie, I don't follow Yahweh, I follow Yahweh, and I was like, bro, that is a legit hoodie. I have to get that. It was on 50% off sale, and I was like, that's it. It's
Well,
happening.
hook a brother up with a link to that because I'm gonna get one too.
Yeah, I posted in the Discord, but yeah, I'll send it to you.
I
Um,
never see any of it. You got to direct message me.
I will. I will. All right.
I'm the
Well,
I'm glad I'm
slow
not the only one that
technology
can't read.
person that works with technology. Let it be.
well. Again,
Perfect.
thanks for joining me, and God's peace, and definitely don't follow your way. Follow Yahweh.
See you, bud.